This is called darkness. Let me do the cursive at least. Darkness by Veikingofficial. And a few questions. Do you want me to just analyze it and sort of give my interpretation? That tends to work best if it's very metaphorical. Additionally, I can give feedback if you want that too. Critique, and if you want critique, whatever you want like me to critique, whatever I want to do, then we'll do all of it probably. And do you want this posted in the YouTube playlist? Is that something you would like? If so, you will join the other poets of Twitch in that playlist. Arson, Asher, hello. Everyone is rolling in. Welcome, welcome, welcome to stream. Glad to have you all here. And for anyone just joining, we're reading Darkness by Viking, just with an EI. Veikingofficial. Everything. I am doing well. Yay, it is good that you're doing well, Asher. Very happy to hear that. Okay. So, here is Darkness, which we were hoping to do yesterday, and now are actually doing, right? They now beg for mercy, and they shout out your name, but you got none of that left. It was taken away. They stole your smile and emotional freedom. Mom's little angel turned into a demon. Deprived of love, and he only knows hatred, embraces oblivion until all life has faded. Consumed by this rage and his lust for revenge, he marches towards his unsettling end. It's funny, this really reminds me immediately of of My Mother by Arson Asher yesterday. The mother's little girl who has died, all of that, and then whatever. But I'm gonna read it again. I'm gonna try not to compare it or have any of that interpretation bleed over into this one. That's an important idea, is to isolate things. Sometimes, it depends, and I'll explain what I mean. Isolation. So, in this sense, we have a poem that says some very similar things to other poems, and that's really interesting, right? But if we let the outside influences, i.e. Arson Asher's poem, influences, creep in to this sort of new interpretation, right? It can kind of blind us to things, right? Now, of course, I think it's also very good to note that once we have interpreted this poem, we can go look at other things that we find similar and say, how does this differ? How is this similar? How do these compare and contrast? Usually not trying to say which one's better, that's a messed up thing to do, but because all art, I think, is very perfect in its existence, but it's an important thing to isolate, understand the poem on its own, and then look outside of it for other influences and context. I find that to be a better approach than starting off and being oh, this poem is like this other one, and this other poem, and also another third poem, and a fourth poem, right? Because that's just stretching ourselves thin, and we lose a strong analysis of the poem we started with, right? So that being said, I'll actually read the poem a couple more times, just for the enjoyment of it. Reading, "You spoke to your English teacher, now I got an A. The research paid off." Arson, Asher, nice. So, did you find damning evidence, if you will, that Robert Browning was writing with irony, satire, and such things, and convince your teacher to change their mind? Or at least provide enough evidence to have a reasonable argument? Is that what happened? If so, that is so cool, and that makes me really happy for you. Yeah, you made a PowerPoint. That's awesome. That's really cool. I'm really happy that you, more so, that you have conviction in your ideas, and you want your teacher to know, like, don't dismiss the things that I put work in to interpret. I think that's really, really awesome that you are doing that. So, that's a good sign for you as an artist, right? Now, that being said, they now beg for mercy, and they shout out your name. But you got none of that left. It was taken away. They stole your smile and emotional freedom. Mom's little angel turned into a demon. Deprived of love, and he only knows hatred, embraces oblivion until all life has faded. Consumed by this rage and lust for revenge, he marches towards this unsettling end. I like lust a lot. That's like one of my favorite words. I just like this word. I think it's great. That's also probably the 5th time in 3 streams that I've said something is my favorite word or one of my favorite words. Lust is a good one. So, eyes emoji. You know what? It's just a word with a lot of charge and emotion and connotation, and can be used in so many ways, because in this case we're lusting for revenge, where of course our regular sort of sexual lust is its own thing, and that's where that's why the word is so good at piquing one's interest, because you use it in any context, and it adds so much. Revenge can be hot. Revenge can be hot. I don't find revenge hot, but I do understand the sentiment there. So, they now beg for mercy, and they shout out your name. Okay, so, perspectives. This is a useful new flag in the back. There is no new flag in the back. Maybe just one you can see better, but trans flag, band flag, flags on that wall over there that you can't see. Progress, Pride, and Soviet flags. Anyway. Oh, and there's an Indian flag there, and another band flag over the door. Yeah. So, something that is useful, we've talked about this before, and we'll talk about it a lot, is perspective. If we're analyzing something, it can be useful to say who is talking, and who are they talking to? Or whatever, right? Perspectives? Did someone call? Yeah. Voyes is great with this. I would say many characters, many shifting focuses in poems. Really cool stuff. You must be tripping then, Arson. Yeah, you must be tripping. You're tripping. I'm not real, actually. None of this has been real. I'm not a real Twitch streamer. I'm a figment of your imagination. So, perspectives. A useful thing, right? So we have you. We have your name, and that we'll do a different color. Your name, which is, again, Mom's little angel, deprived of love, and he only knows hatred. So this is, I'm not using yellow. He only knows hatred, embraces oblivion until all life has faded. He marches towards his unsettling end. So pretty simple, but it is pretty clear, the perspective, but it's just useful to like say, okay, this is one person that we're talking to, you, and then we're talking about he. And maybe this we have like a few already like options here. I'm still real though. No, you're not. I must have a good imagination then. Yay. No idea how I ended up here. How did you end up here? You've been here forever. It's like you were just like came into existence alongside the channel. But we do have like some interesting ideas. You know, deprived of love and he only knows hatred. This could be something that our like narrator, our voice, is speaking to you, right? The girl. Or this could be something that is being said sort of in the abstract, a monologue, right? It could be, yeah, those sorts of things. Mellow and Tears, welcome. I'm your Tulpa. Who is that? I recognize the name, but I should know, right? Is it bad that I don't know that? It's probably bad. Okay. I found you when I was looking for small trans streamers. You know, fair enough. But soon we're gonna be a big trans streamer. Yay! Neck. So. A tulpa is like a creature born from your mind? Oh yeah, you are my tulpa then. Okay. This is true. They beg now for mercy, and they shout out your name. We also have they. They is another character. But you got none of that. It was taken away. They stole your freedom, and they stole your smile and emotional freedom. Mom's little angel turned into a demon. Deprived of love, and he only knows hatred, embraces oblivion until all life has faded. Consumed by this rage and his lust for revenge, he marches towards this unsettling end. So, notably, as we've hashed out the characters and the perspective, we have no direct connection between these two, perspective-wise. It's just like, this is talking about they and you, and then we cut over and we're talking about he. Of course, this is all one poem, all under the title of Darkness, which means these things are probably connected. You should probably assume, if you're reading a poem, it's a good starting place to assume that everything is at least somewhat connected, right? Everything connects. And it's not that every little thing has to connect to every little thing, but oftentimes that is the case, or oftentimes at least most of the things connect together and that nothing gets left out. TBH, it's a bit too edgy. Will probably be a good part of a prose that expands this story. What is too edgy? All sound will burn and all life will scream. Void, yes, when you say random, like, poetic things in chat, are you just, like, keeping notes for yourself? like that those are going to end up in poems? Is that what's happening, or do you just say scary things in chat, like all sound will burn, all life will scream? Who knows? So, how do we connect these things? So at that point, you have to connect things through metaphor, or thematic material, or even sometimes rhyme scheme and structure, right? So, they now beg for mercy and shout out your name, but you got none of that left. It was taken away. Consumed by this rage and his lust for revenge, he marches towards this unsettling end. So, we have this idea of having no mercy. Where's the color? Mercy? None of that, right? There is no mercy. And then here we have a lust for revenge, we have only knowing hatred, which tells me potentially pretty... You've already said that in a poem, if I remember. That is so true. That is so true. That's in, is that in Bones of Soul? No, it's in the one with the Lord, right? I forgot where it is. A Road to the Waves? Yeah, all sound will burn, all life will scream. Okay. Really, like, building the Void Yes lore, the self-referential things, all of that. So provided that this person, you, are, like, merciless and has no emotional freedom, is a demon, and then we have he, only knowing hatred, tells me that maybe these are the same person. I would say fairly confidently, I can say that that's all one person. But then we're like, wait, but we said there's two different characters. It's called changing. It's called transformation. So that makes, like, this point, Mom's little angel turning into a demon, this point of transformation. Trans? Maybe. Pronouns. But it doesn't have to be. So that being said, what is being said? We know that this is all one person, but what does any of that even mean? Right? Give me 1 sec. I'm going to... I want this over here. I want it on its own. There we go. He's the same person as the you. Same person as the you, but since the you became a demon and non-human, it became a he as to unhumanize the you. I see. I will say, one note, which I guess I haven't said recently, Veikingofficial, is, I was pretty much going there, but, don't... So, sorry, I'm not going to tell you this. My personal inclination when sharing poetry is to not reveal my secrets. I read a lot of poetry and share it, and people say oh, what does that mean? And I'm and then, they say, what that shit mean? They're like, girl, that poem's weird. What did that mean? And I say, what that mean? I usually don't swear. I just say that back, because I personally feel like this engages the audience. It also allows their interpretation to be equally valid. If I never tell them, what I meant, then all they can have is their best guess, if they think there's a right thing, and their own interpretation. And generally that leads to spending more time with it and more confidence that one's interpretation is, in quotes, correct. Not that one needs to have a correct interpretation. I'm also sort of denying the existence of a correct. But that's the idea. Hey, Slotus. Hi, Liza. Welcome. My name is Ginny, also known as 2/3 Slotus. Welcome. How are you doing today? We're reading Darkness by Veikingofficial. But my point here is to say that me revealing my interpretation, the big reveal, oftentimes invalidates not directly, but slightly, their opinion, because this is mine, and I'm the poet, right? I'll forever call you Slotus, because I thought it was so funny when you said it. Everything is good. Work was good. Mood is good. Health is good. So happy today. That is awesome, Liza, rise up. Also, your name is so fun to say. Liza, rise up. Just so fun. Right. And I personally am of the inclination to just let my readers sit with their own ideas. Because their ideas tend to be way freaking better than mine. Way better. I have a poem that I wrote, and one friend interpreted it as being about love and romance, and one interpreted it as being about alcoholism, and one interpreted it as being about, other addiction, and one interpreted, many different things, and one interpreted about just literally as the story the poem was telling. So, the great thing about poetry, in my opinion, is that, right? If a poem has some triggers, am I still able to read it on the stream? or do you typically avoid reading poems with triggers? I have and will continue to read poems with triggers. Oh, Twitch hit with an ad. Okay. It was supposed to give me a notification in chat. You're supposed to tell me, Twitch. I set you up to tell me. Take a self-care ad break. Stand up. Get away from the screen. Don't watch the ad. It's bad for you. And I'm also gonna, while I do this, try to figure out how to have it notify people upon the ad break in chat, so that it doesn't ambush us, right? Which I forgot how to do. So yeah. But standing up, still good thing. And ad is still starting soon. My friend Ashton wrote a really good poem, and I'm about to suggest that she come here and have you analyze it. Yeah, absolutely. She can absolutely share it. It also does depend, right, like, on the triggers in the poem. If it's like, you know, if it's super, super awful stuff, like, sometimes that's just something that I'm not in a headspace for. But I am always, always open to reading work and analyzing work that makes me uncomfortable, because that is the point. And as long as it's accompanied by a trigger warning that can help the audience know this is maybe an uncomfortable thing, make sure to take care of yourself, make sure to step away if you need, then it's really about the warning and the communication and all that, right? So, of course, there are some things that are like TOS that I probably just can't put on Twitch, but I could also probably scream at Twitch because art is art, and I hate that sometimes art that is extremely heavy and triggering is restricted. So, there's that. Outfit is great again, love the skirt. Same skirt as always, but I'm glad you love it. I love it too. It's my favorite skirt. And Liza Rise Up. It's essay, but it wasn't explicit. I read it earlier. Yeah, I was going to read it, and I forgot, because I remember that they mentioned it in your chat. I almost fell off my chair. Okay. One of your poems are mature. I always say these, like, ponderings in chat, but yes, that make me want to answer. Are they mature? Writing poetry is mature. I linked her your stream. Hopefully she's the DM is brave enough to come and share. Yeah, I mean, if she comes in and watches, great. If she comes in and watches and shares, awesome. If she comes in and doesn't want to share because it's a heavy poem, that's fine too. You know, I get very, like, deep into these things, right? Stretching stick. Anyway, so we were talking about this poem, right? Salty sarcasm. Hello, hello. So back to this. They now beg for mercy and they shout out your name, but you got none of that left. It was taken away. They stole your smile and emotional freedom. Mom's little angel turned into a demon. Deprived of love, and he only knows hatred. Embraces oblivion, all life has faded. So, I think I was initially a little thrown off by this line, because sometimes I think about that as like something you would say to a daughter, but of course that's not a gendered statement, which threw me off with like the he. But there's also the fact that you could say this as something sort of gendered, and say the girl has now turned, the little angel has turned into a demon, has turned into this other thing, and now we're going so far as to using pronoun he. Right? That's an interesting take. If I wanted to make it about, you know, everyone's favorite thing gender, right? Which we talk about a lot on this stream. Green, blue, purple, right? But it's as far as I can tell, it's not really like explicitly about that. It's just like a possible interpretation. Also, salty sarcasm. Glad to have you around. Thanks for lurking. Means a lot. So, so, deprived of love, he only knows hatred, embraces oblivion until all life has faded. Consumed by this rage and his lust for revenge, he marches toward this unsettling end. And here's the part where, like, interpretation is a cool thing. Embraces oblivion. What does that mean? Because that's his action. He embraces oblivion until all life has faded. He marches toward an unsettling end. This is what he is doing, right? And a character like a mother is overbearing. I personally suggest to expand that aspect, on that aspect, if you want to keep it short or get rid of it. That's mellow. You both have red names. Character like a mother is overbearing. I personally suggest to expand on that aspect, or if you want to keep it short, get rid of it. So you're saying you really like the idea of the mother as something overbearing and caring, and you might suggest that Viking delves into this more, this idea of like turning away from that overbearing care, that mother, and turning into sort of whatever this is, the monster. It's an interesting idea. I do like it, and I think that's definitely valid advice. And that's like a point of interpretation. You think you see the mother as overbearing. I see the mother here as, longing for their lost child. And if I were to maybe give an emotion to this mother in like, based on, one line, which is interesting, right? And I was going to say the same about embraces oblivion. And what this monster is doing, what this darkness is, right? Because some people talk about embracing oblivion, and that's something that puts them out of their mind. That is letting in something that, turns off the mind, going into another place, like substance. This could be a poem about substance to some people. A stealing of emotional freedom. They could be a substance. They shout out your name, but you've got none of that left. It was taken away. A substance that you were seeking. And now you are marching toward an unsettling end, influenced by it. Whoa, interesting, right? That's an idea. It might not be what I interpret this poem is, because that's not really something I've had a great deal of experience with, but that is something. What else could embraces oblivion mean? This could be sort of, if we're taking this at very face value, this could be violence. This could be someone so fed up with the world, who's been numbed down, and sort of understanding the perspective of someone that we would see as a demon. The idea of the demon, right? We demonize people. Demonic, right? So many things. And this poem, in a sense, it's called Darkness. It's about this person being consumed, things being stolen, them being beaten down, once being something good. The dogs are barking. I'm gonna close the door. Be quiet! Right, so the demon. This poem makes me empathize with the demon who was once, a little angel. And poetry is really cool in its ability to do that, to help us empathize. I wrote a poem. Yeah, the dogs are okay. They're just really loud. They're probably barking at either like my dad getting home or someone outside. They can just sound very like howly, but they're fine. And empathy is an important idea in poetry. Right. I wrote a poem. This is a challenge that I've given on stream before to anyone who wants to take it. Any poets, writers, artists, musicians, any form of art. Right. Practice this. Create a piece of art. Piece of art from the perspective of the demon. That could be someone who you politically demonize or demonize for their actions or morally demonize. Someone who you cannot agree with fundamentally. And don't attack them. Don't attack the demon. Don't make fun of. But like understand, right? And that's an excellent way to practice, writing about a character like this. And I think in a sense this poem does that. Raymondo, welcome. It's been a while, I feel. How are you? So, they beg for mercy and they shout out your name, but you got none of that left. It was taken away. They stole your smile and emotional freedom. Mom's little angel turned into a demon. Poem on Roy Cohn. Here I come. Do it. But not on, for, or alongside, or in association with. A loving poem toward, right? This poem could also be about gender. As a gay, queer, whatever person, all the things. They stole your emotional freedom. They shout out your name. Names are really important for us queer folk. I have many names. I share some of them don't get shared, right? Because some people will shout them out in hatred. Deprived of love, he only knows hatred. Embraces oblivion until all life has faded. Consumed by this rage and his lust for revenge, he marches toward an unsettling end. Right? This could be about a relationship. They now beg for mercy and shout out your name. Like they want you to let them back in. But you got none of that left. It was taken away. They stole your smile and emotional freedom, right? Manipulation. And there could still be manipulation happening here. Mom's little angel turned into a demon. Deprived of love, he only knows hatred, embraces oblivion until all life has faded, trying to find some escape. Consumed by this rage and lust for revenge. Again, if we go back to the idea of lust as like a thing that happens sexually, with that connotation, that makes sense. Of course, lust for revenge is a common term, but, and his lust for revenge. He marches toward this unsettling end. And again, that could be the end of our relationship. So, poems have so many ways to be interpreted, clearly, even in such a short amount of lines. And they allow us to empathize and feel for others and all of this stuff, right? And in some cases, maybe this person is a monster who is going to commit violence against someone. Maybe this person is someone who has been taken by substance, someone who is in a bad relationship. Maybe they're someone struggling with their gender. It doesn't really matter. Because this poem makes me feel for them. Right? And I think that's really important. I mean, I say it on this channel a lot. Slabs Hood, you can fit so many feelings in this Twitch stream, right? Poems do that great, and they do that really elegantly. And it's just about, like, letting yourself engage with them, and on a personal level, choosing how you want to interpret them, right? Because at the end of the day, I've provided you a lot of, like, maybe this is the interpretation. You know? Basically, everything I've said thus far has been a maybe. Because at the end of the day, I don't know what your poem means. Always, always. This goes for everyone, no matter how confident I seem. I don't know and I can't know what your poem means. Particularly on the level of the exact reasons and context of why you wrote it. Right? And then I, as the reader, now have the option to engage and choose. And I chose green here because it connects to what we were talking about earlier, where as a writer you have that choice too. Do I let my reader engage? Do I tell them a lot and end up somewhere on this side of our specificity graph? Or do I tell them less and give them more interpretations, or tell them very, very little, like some of the poems I've been writing recently, which are very strange and dreamlike, and give room for many, many interpretations? And that's a choice that you make as a poet, right? I personally like to be on this side. You know, people like, it depends on the poet. I think Bukowski ends up over here. I think I've Kafka over there ends up somewhere here. Nabokov, depending on the book, is somewhere more in this section. Gabriel Garcia Marquez is up here. And all of the magical realists and just completely magical writers. You know, Neruda tells us that his work is a love poem. And we know that, right? And this poem, you know, I think, as we showed a lot of different interpretations, so probably somewhere over here. But, there's also the point that you moved to explain the poem to me, and that's okay. I'm not trying to tell you that was a bad thing, because for some people that is a choice they want to make. They want to make sure their reader knows what they're talking about and can engage with their exact idea. You know, getting to this point of almost like the asymptote, approaching only one interpretation. It's actually funny because the axis starts on, or the asymptote, that's a math term, a line that something approaches, is one, right? One interpretation. And that's like a choice for the poet, right? Now we also have a title here, which we haven't really talked about. It's called Darkness. And titles a lot do end up do end up informing us a lot about the meaning of the poem. So this is called darkness, right? What does darkness mean here? They now beg for mercy and they shout out your name, but you got none of that left. It was taken away. They stole your smile and emotional freedom. Mom's little angel turned into a demon. Deprived of love, he only knows hatred, embraces oblivion until all life has faded. Consumed by this rage and his lust for revenge, he marches toward this unsettling end. We talk about darkness a lot in life with a few meanings, right? I hope this email doesn't find you, and I hope you have escaped and you are free. I hope that you escape and are free, the void, yes? Darkness. What does this mean in this poem? Right, we talk about darkness a lot, and sometimes that is, this meeting could have been a frolic. Neruda has this thing about being a man of great passion, too much passion. His love is gigantic, and he loves everything. People, food, mountains, parties, both his poetry and prose. One sees that his love is intense, but does not last. Yes. That is very true. I need to read more Neruda, and you clearly know more about him than me. I have bright moments, but I'm dumb as a rock. I feel that sometimes too. It happens though. We all look dumb as a rock compared to our brightest moments, but maybe we shouldn't be comparing those. So when we ask about the darkness, right? Closer, we were pretty close to an ad break. When we talk about the darkness, we wonder, like, what is this talking about? That's the point of interpretation for this poem. What is oblivion? What is the unsettling end? If you want to make your own interpretation, that's the question you kind of answer. And again, we have the oblivion, we have all the ideas we've talked about before. And perhaps there's an element of, darkness is a lack. There is nothing in pitch darkness. Which to me usually means two things, right? Two things. Death or depression. A complete absence. And depression isn't a complete absence, although sometimes it is at like the extreme ends, right? I think depression sometimes I would describe as like a living death, And if we're talking just going so far as titling the poem Darkness, then we're probably talking about a fairly intense darkness, right? It's the one poet that they make us all read when we're kids in school. So we got Neruda shoved in our faces all the time, or used to. I see. I've never had Neruda shoved in my face. I've come to him on my own. But that being said, darkness. Pure, darkness. Demons, angels. To me, that's leaning more to death than depression, right? So how so? They now beg for mercy and they shout out your name, but you got none of that left. It was taken away. They stole your smile and emotional freedom Mom's little angel turned into a demon. Deprived of love and he only knows hatred, embraces oblivion until all life has faded. Consumed by his rage and lust for revenge, he marches toward this unsettling end. And ideas of mortality, nothing left. Life has faded. Embrace oblivion. Pretty much two options when you're choosing someone to kill. It is someone else, another person, or the self, right? Whose unsettling end? This unsettling end. It's one letter away from saying his unsettling end, and that makes it pretty obvious, right? But we're talking about revenge. So, of all our different interpretations that we've come up with, the substances, the relationships, the queerness, the manipulation, the violence, I choose violence. I mean, yeah, like if I had to tell you my interpretation of this poem, which I actually don't often do, actually on stream, I usually stop talking right about here. But yeah, I think our demon is like killing someone. And it's funny how, you know, maybe that feels very like anticlimactic as like an interpretation, right? Because we talked about all this stuff and it's like, oh yeah, like final point, like it's about someone being killed. And of course, again, we don't have to kill others or the self. Others mean like so many things, and self means so many things. So now we're back into it. Self, you can kill a part of yourself. You can kill a memory. You can kill an idea. You can kill, you know, your past. Others, you can kill, not just people. You can kill why am I like getting stuck on that? I mean, anything external to you, right? You can kill a place or an association. You know, it doesn't have to be a full-on murder, right? When people say that you're dead to me, that's all killing. And to be honest, you know, I again can't be certain of which one. I already can't be certain of this interpretation because I have like 4 others that I told you all. And now I have like 8 sub-interpretations. Point of this being that like when you get abstract like this, which I think is beautiful, it's very excellent, you're asking your reader to parse through a lot of darkness, a lot of different interpretation. That makes this a sort of difficult poem. It's not bad. But yeah, I don't know. It's I mean, maybe it feels like sort of anticlimactic to you to not get an interpretation out of me, or something specific, a way that I relate specifically to this poem. And maybe I have that in my head and I'm not telling you. Maybe I'm still not sure. Right? Who knows? The ad. Y'all. That's brutal. So the ads, it's supposed to tell me in chat, like, when there's an ad. It doesn't do that, which sucks. Self-care stands up, get away from your screen. For the ad. All of that. Drink water. Don't watch the ad. We back. Lovely. Welcome back. Stretching stick. Dropping things. Okay. Welcome back. Ad is over. I told Twitch to do the thing where it like tells me when there's gonna be an ad. Army ads never gonna get me. Now, what if I sent you a meme? What, you want me to do like a poetic analysis of a meme? Oh, and we're not done yet. Ad interrupted us. What was I talking about? Right. I may or may not have a specific interpretation of this poem that I haven't told you which one I think it is. Right? But, you know, that's the beautiful thing about poems. I said this in Liza Rise Up stream the other day when she was trying to come up with a word, and we were realizing that different people had different interpretations of what the word exasperated meant and how the degree of like annoyance and exasperation. And I said, like, that's the beautiful thing about words, you know? There is a batucada. I don't know what that is. Outside my house is driving me crazy. Probably something loud. But that being said, no, it's the kind of the beautiful thing. It's like a marching band. I see. That's like the beautiful thing about poetry. So, I guess I'll ask, Veikingofficial, do you have any other thoughts? I guess I didn't give you any feedback. I always get so caught up. Do you still want feedback? Do you want more yapping about your poem? Because I can yap longer, but I also want to give other people. Loved your analysis so far. Well, that's good. So, now, I guess my advice depends on what you want, since we've been talking about this. I think I suitably showed you that you wrote a poem that is, like, pretty vague, I would say. Not vague. It talks about something very, very, very specific. So it's not vague. But it is on this side. Many possible interpretations of our graph. Right. And the question is, you know, since earlier, just making one observation, you were inclined to tell me what you meant. And you are not always going to be present when someone is reading your poem. So you have to ask the question, do I want my poem this open? Do I want my poem so open to all of these interpretations that someone reading on the other side of the globe, someone else in chat, let's say, has an interpretation that you don't prefer? And maybe you're of the inclination that allow everyone their interpretations and it's fine. I'm fine with my poem being super abstract. Tends to be how I am most of the time, where I'm like, okay, whatever, you can interpret it however you want. However, there are cases with some of my heavier poems or anything that talks about political things or religion, things that tend to sort of ruffle feathers on people, is I generally like my interpretations there to be pretty singular, because I don't want someone reading my poem and saying like, oh, this is actually saying something different, a wildly different opinion, let's say, on a war. I wrote a poem dedicated to those who have suffered at the hands of faith, and I happened to write it right around the time of the Gaza, or the, Palestine-Israel conflict, the war in Gaza. And I think that poem is fairly clear in what it says, at least on surface. And I also think the degree of nuance in maybe how we see the character, the narrator of that poem, is something where it starts to open up, and that's good. I wouldn't want a poem that can be interpreted as supportive of killing people in the name of religion. That's what the poem is generally against. So like, that's one of the questions you want to ask yourself, right? And that's a question only you can answer. And if we want it more specific, then yeah, maybe if like why do I always forget usernames? I'm really bad because there's so many new people lately. Like Mellow in Tears was talking about the idea of the mother, and if you wanted that to be extremely important, then you lean more into that and make that more of an interpretation here, or something like that. Or if you want it to be even more vague and say, well, I don't even want people to necessarily come to conclusions of animosity or violence, right? You could have this all be a little less charged. Pull out things like lust for revenge. Talk about an end instead of an unsettling end. Make it seem like both sides are a victim, because I see the demon as the victim here, which is also good. That's a very excellent thing. That's very well done. But maybe we don't want that. I like people having different interpretations of my poem, even though I have a relatively specific message in mind when writing it. It's like hearing different opinions to find out if your perspective was right. Exactly, right? It's like my favorite thing about sharing poems is seeing what sort of crazy stuff I get back. And it's all crazy. My interpretations of my own poems are crazy. So, I mean, my advice sounds vague in itself and open, but it's saying, like, know what you want, and look at how I analyzed it, and then say, like, is that a response that I enjoyed, that I felt was appropriate to my poem? You can also not enjoy how someone responds to your poem and still find that an appropriate response, right? someone reads a political poem and feels hatred toward it because they don't agree, that was an effective political poem. So, you know, but maybe that was not an enjoyable experience. But I mean, in terms of structure, I think it's good. You have this nice, like, simple rhyme scheme: A, B, B, C, C, D, D. Nothing special, doesn't need to be, right? Because you do a lot with your words. I think your word choice is very good. I guess a few, like, little things. You say, but you got none of that left. I really like this. It does very much stick out in a poem like this because it's slang. You got none of that left is very much in English how you would say you have none of that left is like the proper way. You have none of that left. You don't have any left, right? You don't. So it's interesting. And that could lead people to certain interpretations on meaning, right? And you said, you know, English, second language. So I'm just pointing that out as maybe that's intended, maybe that's not. If it's intended, wonderful use of the English language. If it's not, then it's not, right? You could probably mess around more with structure or things like punctuation and capitalization and playing with grammar. This is probably a more difficult thing to do in a second language, if I had to guess, but you can absolutely feel free to butcher grammar for your own purposes, right? Sometimes I like to use punctuation to indicate tone, only putting periods where things feel like they are hard stops. So maybe not using any periods until he marches toward this unsettling end, you know, period. And then this could be a semicolon or a dash or a colon, right? Usually writing song lyrics, so I'm really focused on how well it would be saying or read aloud. And there's that too. Then maybe the visual element doesn't matter that much to you. Obviously, I'm seeing this in a visual setting, and that is generally my sort of wheelhouse. I write poems that often do things visually. If I had to pull out, I have poems that cannot really be spoken. I guess I'll go to, what is it called? We're still sorting. I have a poem called it's a Pain is the Flesh and Fear, right? And this poem doesn't, I cannot articulate my wacky, mashing on the keyboard punctuation. I have a poem, however, called Of the Sun. This is a poem that almost has to be performed out loud because I use these vocal ranges in choir to change my voice. Praises echo, ringing, sanctifying, reaching into our hearts' inner recess, our depths, our deepest. 7 basso profondo, and I get higher as I go, baritono lyrico, tenor buffo, coloratura contralto, using my vocal range and my voice training as a trans person so that I can get to an unattainable falsetto. I cannot hit those notes, the ideals of my life's libretto. So I fall. As we all know, Icarus showed my hubris ego, etc., right? And mezzo-soprano, coming into her solo, beginning piano inaudible at lento. but her passion grows, swells to heavenly throes, right? This isn't a poem that I can just show to someone, like on paper, and have work. Because it's about voice training and my struggles with it. I am so glad the cap was on this ink, because I just knocked it off and then caught it, and there would have been ink all over the floor, and I already spilled ink last night. But, yeah. Sometimes you get feedback that is less applicable, because there might be a setting where I do end up sharing of the sun with a person visually, and then of course the vocal stuff can't come through. So then you have to say, if I'm sharing a poem with someone, is this a poem that I want to share as such? When I was writing the poem, I was having the rumbling voice of a demon in mind that would echo in my head, so quite different. Exactly. I mean, my goal is to talk like this, right? This is where my voice training, and higher. I need to add a point redeem that's just like channel points for remind me to actually practice voice training, because I settled down into my current default a lot on stream, which is better than how I used to talk. So I guess that being said, I'll read yours again in as much as I can the rumbling voice of a demon. And if you have no other questions before that, then I don't know. I think that's all I have to say about darkness. And I think it was really excellent. Really intrigued to tell you what I had in mind after you finish with the analysis, if I want. See what you think about having worked on it for so long. Yeah, and that's your choice. That's just your choice. Whether or not you want to. I have certain people in chat. I think it was Asher. It might have been Void, yes. Who I basically sort of converted over to my opinion of not sharing interpretation. Right? And that's just like your choice. So, but if you have no other questions or things you want me to look at, I think I'm pretty much done with this poem. I'm gonna read it, and then if you want, you can send me your interpretation. Darkness. They now beg for mercy and they shout out your name. But you got none of that left. It was taken away. They stole your smile and emotional freedom. Mom's little angel turned into a demon. Deprived of love, and he only knows hatred, embraces oblivion until all life has faded. Consumed by this rage and his lust for revenge, he marches toward this unsettling end. Darkness by Veikingofficial. Yeah. I think that's the poem. I thank you. It means so much to have you share poetry, which can be a vulnerable, scary thing, and yeah. I think you already said that you're okay with this going on the Poets of Twitch, the YouTube playlist. If not, you can change your mind now. And you can change your mind with YouTube. I don't want it there anymore.